and appreciate the technology. So
Richard, I think you need to give Tim a heads up in 10 seconds.
Okay.
That's the TV guy.
Okay, we're going to get started in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I think we're started now. Thanks for that reminder, Kevin. So is that good enough? That's good enough. We welcome everybody. This is going to be a pretty informal meet and greet, but we do have some official business. We have approval of the minutes of our October 7th, 2020 meeting. And I'm going to make the assumption that people have had the opportunity to read those minutes. And so I will ask if anybody has any corrections or changes to those minutes. Hearing none, we're going to administratively approve the minutes without further discussion. So now the next agenda item is the get acquainted part. And Lucy, I think you're it, or am I missing this?
No, you're absolutely right. Good evening, Chairperson Sola. I am Lucy Sloman, Land Development Manager. And tonight we are joined by our two new commission members, Patty Dillon. Would you raise your hand, Patty? Thank you. And John Akita. Did I say that correctly, John?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, excellent. And the purpose of tonight's meeting is to get to know each other. So we'll do some introductions. Hopefully it will be fun. And then I will discuss some things about the commission, how it fits into the city's organizational structure, the kinds of permits that come, how that works, and some other business and such. If there are questions, I'm not quite seeing where the chat function is, but I feel like this as an intended as an informal meeting. I don't know whether I will see everyone, but I think we can try just having people speak up. And if that becomes too chaotic, then we'll try and go back to the chat function. Does that work? See lots of head nods. Excellent. Okay. I am now going to attempt to share my screen. Can you see my screen yet?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Super. Just going to try and make you all. Yes.
This is Andrea. Just so that you're aware, your screen is in kind of the presenter view format, such that we're seeing your first slide and then also a preview of your next slide and any notes that you might have added to the bottom. And so I just wanted you to be aware of what we're seeing.
Yes, I don't have any really salacious notes, but this is where I'm going to try and get out of it again. That did not, let's see.
No, you have to go to the top of the screen and then a drop-down menu will appear for you.
Yeah.
It would be the primary screen that you were watching the WebEx presentation on.
Ah. Okay, let me try. Sharing a different way. Is that just one that you're seeing now?
There you go. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to reveal too much to you ahead of time. So, okay. Good evening. Thanks for your patience with technology. So we're going to start with the introduction part. I would like to just pose some questions as an opportunity for us to tell a little bit about ourselves. The name, length of time that you're living in the city, length of time on the Development Commission, and then something about yourself. You are free to pick any or all of, or another question that you would like to tell the Commission about. And to give you a moment, since I got to read the questions, I actually typed the questions. I will start to give you a moment to think about what you might want to say. I'm Lucy Sloman, as I mentioned. I have been an employee of the City of Issaquah since 2012, but before that, I was a planning consultant providing staff services. And so I've been doing that since 1996, so since the last century. I have been the liaison to the Development Commission for, I think, 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure what my hobbies are right now. I mean, there's so little that we can do. I guess I would say I am binge watching lots of TV and learning how to operate all kinds of remotes and different programs. And I am a slippers and jeans person. I don't know that I own sweatpants. So leaving the house is putting on shoes, which I haven't done for a very long time. So I will maybe just call on people since we're not in any particular configuration, and maybe, why don't I do this? I will identify the next person and then they get to pick the next one. So we'll be kind of a ball toss. And I will pick Arthur Schultz.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. First of all, welcome, Patty and John. Great to have you on board. My name is Arthur Schultz. I'm a project manager for an architecture firm in downtown Seattle, and I'm also an adjunct professor at a local technical college teaching architecture software. Length of time in living in the city, just under 3 years, and just under 2 years for length of time on the Development Commission. I guess something interesting about me is I was born and adopted from Vilnius, Lithuania. It's been way back, but almost seems like yesterday. And then traveled to Baltimore, Maryland was the first home in the States before moving out here. And I've been here about 22 years in the Pacific Northwest. And then regarding hobby, biking, paddleboarding here on Lake Sammamish, and of course, hiking on the wonderful hiking paths that we've got here as well. And then I guess I picked the next person, huh? Let's start with John. You're up.
Yay. My name's John Akita. I moved here in 93 or so. I'm a project manager with the FAA. Built air traffic control towers from my first ones in Denver. Been working at it for about 37 years. Not on the Development Commission the first time. My hobbies are biking, like you say. I just bought an e-bike, which is a gas. And the other hobby I picked up during COVID is carving wooden spoons. So it's kind of it's a dangerous hobby because I've cut myself a few times. But Doug Yormick.
I'm Doug Yormick. I am an assistant planner with the city. I am one of the planners that Lucy Sloman manages. I run the behind the scenes, manage the chat, and just make sure we get the public comments organized. I don't live in the city. I live in Seattle, but I've been working for the city for going on 4 years in March. Hobby, I run, I hike, I guess all of the things that people in the Pacific Northwest say that they do. I do that. I do play a lot of guitar as well. And during COVID, I've really picked it up and started playing a lot more than I used to before. And I don't own slippers because I can't find slippers my size. So I'm just socks and jeans. Oh, and then I get to choose next. So I am going to choose, let's go with Richard Sola.
You're still muted, Richard.
There you go. Sorry. As was stated, I'm Richard Sola. I been living in Issaquah for 11 years now. I've been on the commission 5 years, I think. I don't know, in there, 4 or 5 years. I like to fish. I work I volunteer at the Issaquah Salmon Hatchery every day. And, try to convince the fish that I've fed them every day. So when they come back in 4 or 5 years, they should remember me and honor me with being able to catch them. But it hasn't worked very well so far. I do wear shoes. I do wear pants and get to go outside. One of the only volunteers that they allow to come on the hatchery grounds. I've been there for 8 years now. So not very exciting. I was going to say my first job and my worst job. My best friend, I was living in Ogden, Utah, and he convinced me, we were in junior high school, and he convinced me that a good job would be to go pick beans because we could make a lot of money. And it was like 500 degrees temperature and about 400% humidity. I lasted about 20 minutes. We got in a big bean fight and tore down a whole bunch of bean rows, and they asked us to leave. Not a good introduction to the working world. So we may as well stick with Richards. How about Richard Sanford?
Hey, welcome Patty and John to the DC. My name is Richard Sanford, and I moved up to Issaquah from the Bay Area in 1989. 31 years, hard to believe. I've been on the DC for 3.5 years now. And unlike some of my all of my fellow commissioners, really, I don't have a background in architecture or land use or anything like that. I joined the DC right after retiring from Boeing. And there I was a technical communicator and project manager. And so I guess the powers that be thought that I was technical enough to take a chance with me. So I've been here for a while. And let's see, hobby, I also write some fiction on the side. So after a while, I'll try to sell you a novel or two. That's about it. So let's see. Brook Shore, are you out there?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yes. Hi, I'm Brook Shore. I've lived in Issaquah for over 5 years, and I've been on the Development Commission for about 1.5 years. And I also like biking, and I just bought a new pair of slippers last week because I decided I needed 2 pairs. Definitely wearing a lot of slippers recently. And let's see. Kevin, do you want to go next?
You're still muted, Kevin.
How about now?
You're not muted anymore.
All right. Well, I'm here. I just dropped my computer. I've regained my composure. I'm welcome, Patty and John. It's nice to meet you. My name is Kevin Price. I've been on the commission since I guess it's 2016 now. And I moved to Issaquah in 2015 from Seattle after living there for about 20 years. Let's see, something about myself. Well, hobby, I have no hobby. I recently, during the global pandemic and political uncertainty in the world, decided to start my own job or my own business. So I've gone out on my own after working with a company in Seattle for the past 25 years. So it's just me in my basement. So it's so far so good. I'm really enjoying it. First job, I was a junior ranger for the City of Boulder Mountain Parks, which was a really awesome job. We got to do trail maintenance. We got to build new trails. And on the occasion, if you followed some of the news coming out of Colorado this summer, we also got to fight fires. So we were teenagers. I was in junior high doing this, out fighting fires. I'm not sure they would let you do that now, but for whatever reason, we were fighting fires. And while working virtually, I can't say enough, I got some new slippers. These are spectacular. You've got to try them. They fold down so they fit more like a clog, or you can put the heel up. It's unbelievable. But I strongly recommend slippers for COVID working. Let's see, is Patty out there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm Patty Dillon. I have lived in Issaquah for the past 11 years, and the 10 before that in Seattle. I'm actually technically a Seattle native. I was born here when my dad was in grad school and moved around quite a bit, California, Colorado, Calgary, growing up, and then made my own way back here for graduate school at UW, and have been here since. I'm a civil engineer. I work for a water resources consulting firm. And hobbies, normally at this time of year, I would be coaching one or both of my kids in basketball. I've been a coach with Parks and Rec for, I guess the past 7 seasons before this one. Kind of same outdoor activities. Kind of one interesting tidbit, I worked as a whitewater rafting guide for a year outside Sacramento in between college and grad school. So that's always a little fun fact to share. Mostly during COVID, I've been a jeans and shoes kind of person, but I actually just found the most amazing pair of sweatpants that I've ever owned. I think I'm asking for another one for Christmas. So I can be converted. Let's see, I get to see more of the list here. I guess, how about Mike Brennan?
Great, thanks, Patty. Nice to meet you, and you too, John. Welcome to the commission. So, my name's Mike Brennan. I grew up on the east side of the mountains in Wenatchee and moved to this area about 33 years ago, and have enjoyed every minute of it here. Been on the commission for over 10 years. I lost tracks. When you get up into double figures, you just don't know anymore. So, but it has been over 10 years, and I have seen a lot of amazing projects come through the commission as the city's grown, and it's been a lot of fun to be a part of that. I really enjoy the outdoors, so I do a lot of hiking, some climbing, biking, you name it. Outside is kind of the place to hang out, which has been good during this kind of period of COVID, since you can't do anything indoors, so at least outdoors is still open. I work from home. I work for the city of Bellevue, so just to the west of here, in the Development Services Department. So I have a lot of similar work that I do during the day as with what we deal with in the evening here at the commission. I am a jeans, not a slippers guy, I'm a socks guy. So jeans and heavy socks work great. Then you're more mobile with your socks on. So that's my preference. Anyhow, I will hand it to Commissioner Morgan.
Well, thank you, Mike. My name's Mel Morgan, and by the way, Mike is my next door neighbor, so it was a short handoff. We lived next door to each other for 26 years, maybe, I think. And I've lived in here for 27 years, I guess, in the area, because I actually live in Sammamish, but when we moved here, it was unincorporated King County, and we had an Issaquah address. So my address changed, but my address didn't change at the same time. So anyway, so live in Sammamish, but have been here 27 years. And I've been on the Development Commission now, I think it's 25 years.
Wow.
So I'm still learning, still trying to understand what I'm doing, but it's been great. And I applied to the Development Commission originally because my background's in commercial real estate appraisal, and I wanted to do something for the city, and I thought this was real estate related. And it's been a fantastic experience, and I think John and Patty will really enjoy it. Probably the biggest hobby is hiking. Although I did learn a new skill, a new COVID skill. This was my wife and I made lefse this weekend, so I'm sure we'll start a business soon. It was that good. My first job was in high school working as a weekend DJ at a country music radio station in Shelton, where I grew up. And my best job was in college at the UW, when I was a bartender at Dante's Tavern. And yeah, I'll kind of whatever's clean in the closet, I guess. So, and I think that might be it.
What's lepta or whatever?
Oh, lefse is potato bread. It's a Norwegian type of potato bread.
Thanks. I'm probably the only one that didn't know, but I didn't know. Thank you.
So I think, is that it, I think?
Andrea.
Sim? Where did I? Oh, there we go. Andrea.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Andrea Snyder. I'm the Deputy City Administrator for the City of Issaquah. And also, and I'm going to trump Lucy's announcement that I'm sure she's going to make shortly, I'm also serving as the Acting Community Planning and Development Director. For those of you who know Keith Niven, who was our previous director, his last day with the city was on Friday. So I will be serving as Director of Community Planning and Development until we are able to fill the position and find somebody else to fill the role. I have served the city as Deputy City Administrator for almost 2 years now. Maybe we'll call it a year and a half, somewhere between there. Prior to that, I served the city for 5 years in economic development. And I've certainly served other cities in the region, including Kirkland and Burien, and worked for King County. One of my hobbies is I play ice hockey. So not right now because of COVID restrictions, but that would be something I'd be doing if I could. And definitely slippers, gal. I have them on right now. And, you know, I'm willing to check out the slipper recommendation, but I'm pretty happy with what I've got. So thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself, and it's great meeting all of you.
So I feel compelled to say two things. One, I sounded like a complete slug compared to the rest of you. I have been out walking my neighborhood quite a bit. I live in Seattle, like Doug. We don't live that far apart, although we're not as close as Mel and Mike. And I have found, because I'm in the U District, Roosevelt area, COVID Central for Seattle, that I am walking a lot of odd alleys and side streets and Ravenna Ravine. And actually, I can't even go into the ravine a lot of times because there's so many people in there. So I've been walking some very odd routes to avoid people, and these are the best slippers. These are my work slippers.
Ooh, those are nice.
Okay, I just got them for my birthday, and they're very warm and cozy. So I'm advocating for these slippers over Kevin's, but you know, it's not a competition.
Are they felt? Is that a wool
Yes.
felt? Oh, wow.
Yes.
I'm a little jealous, but I can't have anything that will attract dog hair in my house. Or
Yes, and this would not work. I'm finding that the static electricity is pretty impressive. It's kind of like Swiffers on the bottom. But anyway, I digress. This is the kind of entertaining portion of the agenda. Now we're going to move on to some business of talking about the Development Commission. And the first thing we're going to address is how does the Development Commission fit into the city organization? You know, like many things in our country, there are three branches, and both the Development Commission and CPD, as we call it now, is under the administration. And so sometimes CPD is both making decisions, administrative decisions on certain smaller permits, and then making recommendations. Occasionally, our recommendations are directly to council, but more frequently, our recommendations are to the Development Commission. And likewise, sometimes the Development Commission makes decisions, and sometimes the Development Commission makes recommendations, and those recommendations would go to the City Council for their decision. So what I'm now going to spend some time on is the different kinds of permits and why you would be making a recommendation, why or when you're going to be making a recommendation or a decision. So first we're going to look at the permits and the criteria for permits. And this is kind of our agenda for the evening. We'll look at the permits and review criteria. The main things that you all review are site development permits or SDPs, master site plans or MSPs, and development agreements. We'll look at the review process at the commission, some of your other responsibilities, and then take any final questions. But I also want to identify that we're looking for your input. So if over the course of the evening you think of things that you think would improve the way we provide information to you or how we do business, please make notes and share those at the end, because this is an opportunity for us to learn as well. So generally, there are, as I mentioned, three kinds of permits that you're looking at. Site development permits, which is called a level 3 review, master site plans, which are a level 5 review, and then development agreements. So let's look at those in a little more detail. A site development permit, we also have administrative site development permits. So what could be the trigger or threshold for something being a site development permit that comes to the Development Commission? And depending on the part of town, it could be the size of the property, it could be the size of the building, or the location. And by that I mean certain streets will trigger it being even a small site or a small building being treated as a site development permit, because on those streets we think that there should be a public conversation about those permits. For site development permits, the Development Commission is the decision maker and the process is quasi-judicial. I have a slide in a minute explaining a little more about what it means to be quasi-judicial. Master site plans, this tool is not used in the urban villages or central Issaquah, which is what these abbreviations mean. So outside of those two areas, a master site plan is required when you have a site that is 5 acres or more. And often you will see a master site plan and a site development permit coming together to the commission. In this case, you're making a recommendation to council. They will be the decision makers, but it is again a quasi-judicial process.
Lucy, can I ask a question? You mentioned you said 5 acres or more, and the slide says 15 acres or greater.
I love when people listen to me and actually pay attention. You're absolutely correct, Mel. It is 15 acres.
Okay.
Thank you. And then development agreements. Generally, development agreements are on sites greater than 15 acres. Not always. We sometimes use that as a partnership tool. For instance, when the commission a few years ago reviewed the Gilman Work Lofts project, that had a development agreement, which was not necessary because of the size of the site, but because the city and the builder were partnering on transportation improvements, and the development agreement was the tool to capture what that agreement was. So a development agreement is would come to the commission like Costco when the council or administration determines that it's appropriate to pursue one. And then again, you would also be making a recommendation to council. And it's a legislative process, typically. Any questions before I go on to the next slide? So quasi-judicial, for any longtime members of the commission, this will be painfully familiar because we read through this at every quasi-judicial public hearing. But for our new members, I do want to discuss this a little bit. So a quasi-judicial process means that you are acting as a court. And so therefore the proceedings have to both be fair and appear fair. And we do that in two ways. One is by observing procedural due process, which means the procedures that we use have to follow a certain adopted rules, and that we focus on the relationship between the decision maker and the people who benefit from the decision. Generally it means that all communication, all consideration of the project is takes place during the public hearing. I will mention that staff are always a resource. We are considered a neutral party, and so always feel free as commissioners to contact me or the lead planner on a permit if you have questions. It's our responsibility to keep you within the proper bounds with those questions, and we're happy to do that. I had put this slide in already, but many of you received, if not all of you, received an email today from a citizen regarding the Providence Heights high school and elementary school site. We have now asked that citizen to reserve his comments and send them to staff. You would have seen all of these comments anyway. But I would recommend that if you see an email whose subject line is related to a permit that is before you or will be before you, that you just don't read it. Just forward it to me and ask questions. And that way it retains the quasi-judicial rules and that everything is taking place within the public hearing. The second part about the quasi-judicial process is substantive due process. And by that we mean that your decision is based on regulations that are adopted. So if you love purple polka dot buildings and think everything should be purple polka dots, and the proposal comes in without purple polka dots and the rules do not require purple polka dots, you will have to set aside your love of purple polka dots and make a decision based on the adopted rule.
You can save that for your slippers.
I would like purple polka dot slippers, frankly. Okay, so we're going to look at the land use process, and we're going to keep kind of zooming in on the part that is the part where you really are, the commission is most involved. But I'm going to start by introducing the full process so that you can kind of see your part. So,
Lucy?
Yes.
I'm sorry, can I, just a quick note on the due process, could you make a quick mention about emails? Because I think that's one area where it's easy to end up replying to everybody on the commission we should not be.
That's a great point, Commissioner Morgan. Thank you very much for bringing that up. what Commissioner Morgan is referring to is that if, for instance, a citizen or myself or another staff person sends an email out to the commission, if you have a question, or you really shouldn't be responding to a citizen, but if you're responding to a staff person, let's say you have a question, and you think it might be useful to the entire commission, really you should email the staff, ask the question, and then allow the staff person, and even suggest to the staff person that this might be useful information to the entire commission, and then have the staff person send it out to the full commission so that we're preserving the record. It's easy to track. The concern is that even though a email may seem innocuous, it may create an effectively a meeting. Even if Commissioner Morgan contacts his neighbor, Commissioner Brennan, and then Commissioner Brennan contacts the chairperson, we are effectively creating a serial meeting through that email. So all of it needs to happen within the meeting, when the meeting has begun. And so the safest thing is just to always only communicate with your staff person or the commission liaison, myself, and let us make that communication more broadly to the commission. Does that answer your question? Thank you. So in terms of the process, this is for the land use portion, not the construction portion, just the land use portion. We go from informal meetings to decisions. And so let me talk about this a little bit. Staff, once a potential applicant contacts us, we'll have a couple of informal meetings potentially. The first one might just be an introduction if there's a large team of consultants, for instance, followed by a collaboration. And at the collaboration, we are generally making sure that they're using the right codes, understanding their project, asking questions, and just kind of getting the lay of the land. Then we move into a more structured staff process. The first is a pre-application meeting. It has a set of submittal requirements. Applicants put this together, and the reviewers all take a look at it and provide comments, which are then given to the applicant, with the goal that when they submit their site development permit or master site plan, it is going to be more compliant and many issues can be addressed. Once we've worked through any questions or comments with the site development permit, then staff would begin working on a staff report. The commission would then hold its meetings. A notice of decision or recommendation would be issued. Once a decision is final, either by the council or the commission, an appeal could be filed. That doesn't happen that often, but we had one earlier this year, for instance. And then once the appeal process has run, if there is one filed, then we move into the construction phase. And generally that's review of construction permits, the actual construction, inspections, and occupancy of the building. So now I'm going to kind of zoom into the next, a little bit more detailed look. So what I've circled is that when the site development permit or master site plan is submitted, that really is when we're beginning to really think about the process with the Development Commission. And with the Development Commission, it's the staff report, the commission meetings, and the notice of decision that are really the key steps in the process that takes place at the commission. And so the staff report, which is staff's evaluation against the applicable codes of the proposal, as well as any exhibits and studies and public comment, all of that will be a packet that the commissioners will receive about a week before the commission meeting. We will also have advertised the commission meetings, depending, I think most of these will require site posting, mailing notices to property owners within a certain distance of the site, and a ad in the newspaper. So there's many different ways that we attempt to make the community aware that this proposal is coming in front of the commission. When at the commission, our typical format for a site development permit, which is the most common kind of permit that comes to the commission, is this two-part public hearing format. At the first meeting, the staff and the applicant each introduce the project to the commission and to the public, and then the commissioners and public get to make some initial comments, ask questions, get clarification. Then following that meeting, staff prepare what we call a briefing response memo. And in that, we summarize the comments, concerns, and additional information requests that we've received. And the applicant and staff each respond to those, providing context, background, code information, and it may result in adding conditions, removing conditions, editing conditions. And you'll again get that about a week before the second part of the public hearing, in which we'll go over those responses, take more public testimony to create a record, and then the commission typically makes a decision. The decision can be approval, approval with conditions, or denial. Those are the general three choices. And then a notice of decision, if the commission is the decision maker, or a notice of recommendation, if there's a recommendation to council, is prepared by staff and then reviewed and signed by the chairperson on behalf of the commission. Are there any questions? That's a lot of information.
I have a couple questions. When they're going to the public hearings and you're developing your questions, are they for the meeting, or, and then if you have collaboration between, say, commissioners, is this something that you need to go through staff people for?
So all the discussion between commissioners has to take place at the public hearing.
Sure.
So that everyone has an opportunity to hear how each commissioner is considering it. I will add, though, because that brings up a really good point, Commissioner Akita, that you are always welcome to send questions ahead of time to staff people. It is very helpful for us to hear, especially if we need to collect information, if we can incorporate that into our presentation. It's very helpful to get those ahead of time because then we're better able to actually provide the information to the entire commission at the same time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
If we get a notice of a meeting and we're not exactly sure where that is in the city or where that is, are we allowed to go to the site?
Yes, you know, that has been something that has gone back and forth, Chairperson Sola, and I appreciate you asking. We have to rely on the record, and but a commissioner is allowed to visit the site. You cannot bring in new information. So, for instance, if one of you visited the site, and even though there was a wetland report that said there are no wetlands on the site, or the wetland is in this corner, it would not be appropriate for a commissioner to come in and say, no, there is a wetland over here, because that isn't part of the record. But visiting the site and just getting a sense of what it looks like, walking around and just understanding it in 3 dimensions, and making it more real than sometimes the drawings and various proposed materials, that is appropriate. Does that make sense, that distinction?
Yes, thank you.
Any more questions before I move on? Arthur, were you asking a question?
Yes, sorry, I do have another one. And just to clarify, having discussions out in public with public members and community, that's against the protocol, right? Just because that would trigger a meeting technically, or actually that provide, I guess that's information that you would have to disclose at the meeting.
Right. If you're approached by a community member, just graciously tell them you can't discuss it. You
Sure.
hope that they will come to the meeting and give their comments there. But that actually also brings up a good point. If you have visited the site, it's always a good idea to identify that at the meeting and just say, I visited the site and walked around. The idea is that no one should be surprised by the things that have taken place, so that if someone observed you walking around the site and then you didn't mention it, no one's trying to hide anything. And so that it would be appropriate to mention that as well.
Okay, thanks. Out of curiosity, Lucy, what is is there a protocol for like note taking during the meetings? I mean, if we're taking notes, is that something we have to keep on record? Is there any protocol for that?
At the end of this meeting, I do have the training tape, or the how last century is that? I have the YouTube video. So from the May 2019 legal training that many of you attended with the city attorney and the city clerk, and they do speak about that in a little more detail. Technically, your notes, any notes on the staff reports that you may have made are public records that could be requested.
Okay.
I have not, in my time, seen those be requested by an applicant or a member of the public, but as I understand it, they could be requested.
Okay, thank you.
Now, if after a permit is approved, you recycle those materials because you're done with them, that's fine. You are not required to retain those things, but if you have chosen to retain them and you are asked to produce them, you would have to do so.
Okay.
And then after the decision is made, we're free to be able to discuss the project with the public as may present itself, correct?
Yes.
No.
No?
No. No.
I'll get clarification. Okay. So, in addition to site development permits and master site plans, there are some other responsibilities that may come to the Development Commission. One of those are community conferences. They don't happen that often. I think we've had one in each of the last 2 years, and it may have been 5 or 6 years prior to that. A community conference is a conversation between the public, the commission, and an applicant, typically early in the process. The kinds of permits that could trigger that is a preliminary plat in the urban villages. Urban villages are like Issaquah Highlands or Tallis, or a master site plan. So those are the two kinds of permits that can trigger a community conference. Another thing that the Development Commission is sometimes asked to participate in is the review of regulations. You would not be the decision maker, but you might be asked to use your expertise from reviewing permits. And an example of that is that the city is currently developing new architectural standards for single family in Old Town. And the Development Commission was asked to jointly review those with the Planning Policy Commission and participate in some of the early workshops. And so, like the review of regulations, there are times when there are duties that are assigned to the Development Commission that may not be directly outlined in your charter, but in which the city believes that the Development Commission has some expertise or insight to offer in a process. So, looking ahead, my first look ahead is actually from last year, which is that the Urban Village Development Commission duties were assigned to the Development Commission and the Planning Policy Commission. And the only reason why I have included that here is because for the new commissioners, you may not have known that we had two commissions. An Urban Village Development Commission and a Development Commission. The Urban Village Development Commission's duties have been wrapped into this commission, but sometimes you may hear of the UVDC, and I just wanted you to know what that was. Second, rivers and streams responsibilities. That commission has been changed and has evolved into what is now the Environmental Board. For the new commissioners, rivers and streams would review permits related to rivers and streams and other critical areas. And now some of those responsibilities have been expanded and broadened in the establishment of the Environmental Board. And so we won't be getting materials and the review that rivers and streams previously provided. Andrea's already touched on Keith Niven's departure and her role as the interim director. I do want to note that our department has changed its name. We used to be Development Services. You would hear us refer to DSD. We are now Community Planning and Development, or CPD. So that's your new acronym for the evening. Like with Old Town, we are doing a major upgrade in the next year and a half of Title 18. Title 18 is one of the titles of the Issaquah Municipal Code, and it is devoted to land use. It is probably the thickness of the land use code equals or exceeds all previous 17 titles. So it's a pretty significant section of the municipal code. And there are several chapters that we will want to discuss and bring to the Development Commission, either on your own or jointly with the Environmental Board. So that will be one of the responsibilities that we look forward to you having this year to provide guidance. The Land Use Code is one of the primary tools that the Development Commission uses to review permits, and so getting your insights and input to those changes is really important to ensure that we end up with a great product. Upcoming permits and calendar. I am aware of 2 permits that will be coming to the commission probably in the first quarter of 2021. One is Brown Bear Car Wash, which is on Gilman, and it is a small site, but due to its location on Gilman, the site development permit will be coming to the commission. The other permit that will be coming to you is the master site plan and site development permit for the Providence Heights site, which contains both a high school and an elementary school. The commission held the community conference for this in July, and we expect that the materials will, for the actual public hearing, will come to you, as I said, in the first quarter. On the site development permit for Brown Bear, you would be the decision maker. For the master site plan and site development permit for the high school and elementary school, you would be making a recommendation to council. However, council makes their decision on all the materials that have been presented to the commission. So you have an important role in asking questions and building a record and creating the materials on which the council will make a decision. We will, all the commissions and boards in the city are working to provide a calendar to each commission that would be included in the packet. Ours is a little more difficult to put together because we don't always know what will be happening over the course of a year. But as we schedule or anticipate permits and projects coming to you, such as Title 18 or these permits, we will be including a calendar in the materials that come with each packet. So you just have that as a reference. And then lastly, the communication that I sent out last week, providing an update on the appeal of the Evergreen Ford dealership. Our goal is to be providing those anytime there is some action beyond the commission's decision. So in the case of Evergreen Ford, that was an appeal of the permit. In the case of, for instance, the Providence Heights schools, that would be to keep you informed of what takes place at council. We want to close that loop, help commissioners know how your work evolves or what happens with it, and just keep you informed. And so before I go into some resources for the commission, I wanted to find out if you had any questions or input that you care to share.
Lucy, one question, Richard Sanford. You mentioned appeal in one of the early slides. Does that always go to the hearing examiner, or are there other options for that? How does that typically work?
I think all the commission decisions would go to the hearing examiner. Council decisions, if they are appealed, do not go to the hearing examiner. I believe they go to Superior Court.
Thanks.
Lucy, you mentioned, or earlier one of your slides had both the quasi-judicial process and the legislative process. Could you talk about the legislative process a little bit, or why it's called that?
A development agreement, when it's those big development agreements, kind of like the Issaquah Highlands or for Costco, that is treated for a development agreement is kind of like adopting a code, such as the Old Town Single Family Architectural Standards. And the process that those go through, because they apply to many properties and not just one particular proposal, is not quasi-judicial, and it allows the community to be in contact with the decision makers and even advocate to the decision makers. And so I think for me, that's the one I immediately think of. There may be other aspects that are different, but I think it's the relationship between the decision makers and any interested parties that is distinct.
Thank you.
Any input that came up while we were going through this?
Yeah, this is Richard. I'd like to give a commendation and then give an exhortation. The commendation is to current commissioners. We get a bunch of material a week before our meetings, whatever they are, and it's usually an adequate amount of time to go through sometimes a whole lot of written paperwork, but it's really critical because it gives us the opportunity to be able to get a sense of the project, and to their credit, the current commissioners have done really an outstanding job, I think, of being able to go through that material and be able to ask some really meaningful questions and make comments. The encouragement or the exhortation is to the new commissioners, and I just encourage you, it's not a time to be bashful or afraid, and it's a time to be bold. And if something doesn't make sense, or if you notice things that you don't understand, boy, the time to be able to make comment on that is during the meetings, and it's really, really critical. We look forward to your ability to be able to read that from your backgrounds and be able to pick out stuff that maybe some of the others of us can't. So it's really a critical part. We're really representing the community in a large way, and so I just encourage you to be really careful as you read and take notes and be ready to ask questions and make comments.
And I would like to add something to what Chairperson Sola said, along with complimenting you all, because I know you put in a lot of effort, and I know that's because of the big bucks that we pay you all. I really do appreciate all the effort, and I wanted to take a moment just to touch on the different roles of the alternates and the regular commission members. Our approach is to have both the regular members and the alternates receive all the materials, participate in all the meetings. However, when we get to the vote, the regular members would be the commissioners who would vote. The alternate members would not have the opportunity to vote unless they have been asked to stand in for a regular member to meet a quorum. But we feel it's really important to have the alternates fully participate. It makes for a rich conversation. We hope it makes it interesting and engaging for the alternates. It means that you all function very well together as a team because you're familiar with the processes and sort of the different personalities and procedures of the commission. So for 90% of the time, the roles are not really distinct, and it's only when we get to an actual vote on a recommendation or a decision.
And how many votes do we? How many regular members do we have for a quorum?
So we have 7 members, and 4 members is a quorum.
Okay.
Yeah, just a quick comment. First, I appreciate what the chair said about participation in the commission. Hugely valuable and I know, thinking back to my first commission meeting, it is a little intimidating, but feel free to lean in and move in there and ask questions and make comments. And just a reminder that staff, if you have questions about the process, etc., city staff are ready and willing to help answer any of those, even outside the commission as we lead in, as long as it's not material to the discussion that we're having during the meeting. And then also, Lucy mentioned that you're going to provide additional communication as follow-up to some of the decisions that are coming out of the commission that may be appealed or maybe recommendations heading to the city council for decision. Really appreciate that, because it's kind of nice to know how the story ends if it doesn't end with us on the evening that we make the decision. So appreciate the additional follow-up, and I think the information that you recently provided on the appeal was good information to see and read. So appreciate that.
I don't know if everybody else heard that real well. Your audio on my computer wasn't very good. Was I the only one?
I had the same problem.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
I'll just, my internet connection must be poor, so sorry about that.
We're just lip reading, Mike. We're reading your lips.
Any more questions or input?
Lucy, could you share the PowerPoint?
Sure.
Thank you.
And actually, I was just about to say that then I can share the whole thing if that's useful to you. I was in particular going to share the next 5 or 6 slides because they're about resources and they have links for the commissioners to those resources. But I can share the entire thing if that's useful.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
I'd appreciate it.
Great. Be glad to. The next section is resources, but I do want to mention, as I did earlier, that there is a sort of the legal framework. How do Open Meetings Act work? What are your legal responsibilities and requirements? Public records, all of these things are discussed in the YouTube video that is shown at the bottom of the slide. I will warn you, it's a little over 2 hours, so set aside a rainy day. And if you would, in particular for the new commissioners, we do require that you watch this because it ensures, it protects both you and the city and ensures that you understand the rules in which you are operating. So please make the time to watch that. So here are some other resources that are available to you to help you be prepared. So I'll start with some general ones. At the city's website, which the address is down here, there are a couple of things that can be useful. One is the Notify Me, which is this second from the left green button. If you select that, you can sign up for various kinds of notifications. It can be based on a neighborhood, it could be based on a project, it could be based on a topic that interests you, such as development. So that's just a resource that's available to anyone in the city. Also at the website, there is a search function at the top. If the other resources we have provided, you aren't finding what you're looking for, feel free to contact staff, or if it's on after hours or on the weekend, or you just are curious, feel free to put something in there. I've heard people generally have pretty good luck with the search function. Another general resource that the city provides is what we call the Active Projects Map. This shows moderate to large size projects that are either in review, which is why they're orange, or in construction, which is why they're gray. And at this site, if you click on one of these parcels, either gray or orange, a panel will appear on the left, providing some basic information and the planning lead. At the bottom of it, it says view related documents. You can click on that and another panel opens and you can see a selection of many of the documents that have been submitted to the city and that we make accessible to the public. Anything that's submitted to the city is available, but to try and keep the list workable, we generally select the ones that we think will be of most interest to the public. Another thing that may be of interest to the commissioners are various city codes and standards. If you click on your government, on the right-hand side is a selection of different kinds of documents. The second from the top is city codes, standards, and plans. And when you open that, this is what you would see. So there are lists of city codes, city standards, and city plans, which may be useful for the permit that you're reviewing. If you select municipal code, this is the page you will get. I don't usually go in this way, but if you want to get to just the land use code, that's an easy way to access it. Code Publishing is a company that publishes many municipal codes, including ours, and the address is at the bottom of the page. When you can see all the various titles that the city of Issaquah has over here. This arrow is pointing at Title 18. Each of these in Title 18 is a different chapter. So there are zoning, procedures, annexations, parking, landscape. And so any of these codes may be useful. I will tell you that one confusing aspect about city codes, which is why we are reworking Title 18, is that these codes may not apply in some areas of the city. Section 1819 has a lot of codes in it. 1819 is Old Town. 1819A is Central Issaquah, which actually isn't at Code Publishing. You have to go to the Document Center, which I'll show you in a minute. Issaquah Highlands and Tallis have replacement regulations that were adopted. This can make it a little confusing to find where the relevant codes are. Again, feel free to contact staff. And we'll try and help guide you through which codes apply to the project at hand.
So I have a question, I guess, for long-term commissioners. How long do you feel like it took you to get a handle on at least some of the code basics, or is that, I mean, I'm sure it's an ongoing process and always checking back, but just curious how long it took to kind of get a working knowledge of where you're looking for most of this information.
I'll jump in and say that generally you'll find that everything is really well explained in the staff report. And so the information that you can refer to the code, but generally the staff has always put everything that you would need to know in the report itself for the most part.
Okay, that's great.
And Patty, this is Richard Sanford. And so to pick up on Commissioner Morgan's comment, often the staff report contains references to specific titles or sections of the code. So they'll be right there in the staff report. So if you can get to the code, then it's easy to look it up from there.
Thanks.
Any additional questions on that one? So I just want to point out there is a section of our website called the Document Center. It used to be listed overtly, but I think staff were the main people who went to the Document Center rather than clicking on those code and standards lists. But sometimes that's the easiest way for you to find what you're looking for. And the Document Center is still there. It just doesn't show up on the website at the main page. So if you enter this address, it will take you to the Document Center. Some of the areas you might be interested in is under development, Central Issaquah. If you click on this triangle, it opens up and expands, and then again with development and design standards, and you can see there are several different groupings, and then you get the specific documents. So for instance, if you were interested in parking and you wanted to check something that you'd seen in the staff report, read the actual language, this is one way that you might go about getting to that specific set of code provisions to read more about it. In addition, the comprehensive plan is available here, as well as any development agreements. So, for instance, we still have development agreements with Rowley Properties, with Lakeside Industries, and with Swedish Hospital. There are more, but just to take those three, if you wanted to see more of the land use regulations that are in the development agreement and apply to a project that had come before the commission, this would be where you would find that development agreement information.
Lucy, I have a question. Richard Sanford. Sometimes looking at the code, I've seen that there are references to ordinances, and they're not linked. Where do you find ordinances? Are they in the Document Center, or where are those?
I believe that if you go to, I can't do it right now, but it's at our website. If you, let me show you. Actually, I think the next slide will help you with that. This is, again, if you go to your government and under officials, boards and commissions, when you click on that, it takes you to a page where you can select which commission. At the bottom of each of these pages, it says Archive Center. And if you click on Archive Center, it will take you to the city's archive. And I believe it has agendas, minutes, and I think ordinances as well. So if you needed to see the actual ordinance, that's the way you would get to it.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So this is my last slide, and I know that sometimes I get questions from commissioners about, how long is my term and what is our meeting night, or I want to see something from a past meeting. And I'm happy to answer those questions, and you may be able to find it at the page for whichever board or commission you're interested in. So at this top box shows sort of the different steps I've gone to. It's kind of like a web address. At the top of the page is the staff liaison and a link to email them. Regular commissioners and their terms are listed here. Alternate members and their terms are listed here. And then information about our meeting times are here. Generally, only the last 3 meetings are shown here with active links, and then you have to go into the Archive Center to access meetings that are further back. And that's my last slide. Any other questions or thoughts?
Lucy, this is Johnny Kidda. It looks like my name's misspelled.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
That's not good. I will check on that. Thank you.
So if nobody has other questions or comments, it seems appropriate. Do I have to officially open the opportunity for public comment? I know Connie Marsh would like to make public comment. So I'd like to open that time for her now.
Okay, let's see if I can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Whoops, there we go. So, well, one, that's the first time I've actually ever heard the process described to Development Commission in that way. So I think that's a step in the right direction. Oh, I'll introduce myself. I'm Connie Marsh. I have a tendency to try to comment on a lot of the development issues. I don't wait for COVID to wear pajamas. I just wear pajamas all the time, and preferably with no shoes and socks in public, so you can just get used to that. And I have a hobby of 2 enormous dogs that I go out in the rain and trounce around. So, but I have an entirely different perspective on Development Commission than staff does and Development Commission itself does. So it is only somewhat a finely run machine from my perspective. The one indicator of that is the name change of the department just got turned to Community Planning and Development, because I think the city decided that the community was one of the least emphasized voices in Development Commission, and now in development projects. So Development Commission is really interesting because you all are supposed to follow and uphold the code. And code tends to be presented to you by staff, as you all said, and they lay it out. And that is staff's perspective on how code should be implemented. And the code, especially our code now, which is really freaking fragmented and difficult to use. I mean, it's crazy, but it can be interpreted in many different ways. And not all of those ways are the ways that the community would prefer. Now, what I found in doing an appeal is that what that tilts to what staff provides is like, has so much standing that it is almost impossible to overturn. And so if you remember, when you came through the process and we created sort of neighborhood descriptions for the central Issaquah plan areas, I think you all were involved in that. It said, this is what we intend for these neighborhoods to be. And so this concept of intent is more of what I look at when I see code going through. It's like, well, what do we want that neighborhood to be? What does the community see for their town? Not only now, but long term, like for their kids and their kids' kids. What do we want this town to be? And these neighborhood descriptions are supposed to, in theory, guide staff's direction on the code, because, you know, there's always this room. So when Lucy talked about, okay, we have this process where we go to a meeting and we introduce each other, I sort of feel like this is the point in time where you introduce the vision of what that neighborhood neighborhood should be. And this is the basis of where the development should begin. It's like, how does this fit in with our town? And then you look at the code and you say, okay, how does this work on through? But this sets the mind of the developer and the expectations of what our community has for that area of our town. Now, we don't have this for every area, though I think that we should. And so at this point, we don't do that enough. And when I saw this agenda and I read input, I took it as, how can we make the process better for the community? I didn't take it as much as an educational section. So I see that little line and I'm going for it, whether you like it or not. So the concept of staff being neutral, I think it's super hard for staff to be neutral when staff talks to a developer all the time, and you know they want, you know what they need, and so you have a tendency to want to accommodate people. It's human nature, right? You all come all with your own expectations, and the public, we come with our own expectations, and you guys have this sort of fine balance of how to try to meld these things. Oh, wait, it's starting to sound like the federal government. I'm sorry. But one of the things that makes it hard for the community is that when we speak, there's no community rebut. And without a community rebut, it makes it very, very hard for the community voice to be solid. So I would ask that there actually be sort of a summation of the community comments, because say if 6 people commented on 6 topics, that would be 36 topics that you guys would be having to remember and then try to decide whether you agreed or disagreed. And so in these meetings, I think it would be excellent to just establish some of those tools to make it easier for everybody to do the very best thing for the community they could. And let's see here. I'm sorry, I have to look at my notes. Oh, the presentation needs to be also include all of the surrounding parcels of land to understand the connectivity, because our town is filled with connections, be it water or roads. And then when you go to roads, there is a disconnect in our roads, because Development Commission is often told that they don't have purview over the roads connections and how they interface with the public right-of-way. And so that's Title 12. And I was just reading that today because I read code for fun. That little discrepancy needs to be resolved in order to make your jobs better and for us to get a better product. And the other thing that we need to do is we need to ensure that all of the documents and all public comment make it onto the record, because during my appeal I found that that did not happen, and that was really concerning to me. We need to review the green sheets. Lucy did not go into the green sheets, and maybe that is part of something that could be provided to the new people. But basically they give you checklists where they show whether they think they've accomplished the particular code items. And they're not very refined, and things you could drive a truck through them. And let's see. Oh, I'm so almost done, you guys. Oh, last one's important. The active projects map, as far as I know, does not show changes that are new. So when you read the active projects map, it all looks like it is of the same age. There's also an active projects list where all of the changes to the projects are highlighted so that you can understand what has been changed in the last 30 days, because otherwise you can just get lost in the entire thing. And there you go. That is my quick and swift. Boy, wouldn't it be nice to have this all be better. update. So DC, in the last year, you've done an amazing job, and I look forward to more whining at you and hope that you will enjoy my new sets of pajamas from the upcoming holidays. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate your comments, Ms. Marsh, and look forward to dealing with you on many further occasions. So we appreciate that. And as we've said, and you may not or may not recall, our effort or our desire is to have as many people come to our public meetings and opportunities to provide input, because they have changed the course of what we did and what we allowed, and it's really vital. And so as you continue to be engaged, I just encourage you to talk to your friends and neighbors and help them be part of the solution as well. So thank you. So it looks like the only, unless there's other, I don't know if there's anybody other in the public, from the public other than Connie.
Doug, could you confirm that whether there is anyone else on? I don't see anyone.
There is not anyone else.
Okay. So it looks like the only other business or announcements is that our next scheduled meeting is December 2nd at 2020 at 7 p.m. sharp. And I guess it'll be a WebEx meeting as well at this point.
Do we have, I'm not sure that there's any permits scheduled for review. There is the standing meeting, you are correct, is December 7th, but I would anticipate that and certainly the 21st is are going to be canceled. But one of the staff people will check in as we get a little bit closer.
So I would just ask our two new commissioners, did you both get emails today, or did you get communication?
Yeah, I did.
I did.
Great. Okay. So it looks like everybody's, and as Lucy said, if the meeting's canceled, that notice gets sent out pretty early. So if there's no other business, no other questions, no other concerns, I appreciate you all and your attendance. And like I said, it was a grand year. We did some fun stuff, and I look forward to being equally fun this next year. So hope y'all have a great holiday, a great Thanksgiving and Christmas, or whatever you choose to however you choose to celebrate that.
Thank you for the presentation, and again, happy holidays to everyone.
Thanks, and nice to meet all of you.